While preparing for a business analysis exam, there is always this tendency to struggle with knowledge areas. So that is why we've created this table to help you remember all those knowledge areas while preparing for your exam. Welcome back to the TechNet vlog. And we've helped so many Scrum Masters, project managers, business analysts, prepare for the exam as well, become better practitioners on the field. So today we're going to dive into this, okay? And if what we've shared in the past have been of good use to you, kindly subscribe, comment, and share. So we're just going to go through this, mention a few, and it's just a summary. Now, starting with the first knowledge area, that is the business analysis, planning, and monitoring. What is the purpose? The purpose of this is for you to organize and coordinate your BA effort. Okay, at this stage, you are planning everything. Okay, so the first task is plan BA approach. What BA approach do you want to take? Elements you have the formality, the methodology, the deliverables, the techniques, and as an input, you would need to have an idea of the needs of the business. Okay, output would be your BA approach, and your stakeholder. You have your sponsor, your regulator, and all whatnot. Guidelines and tools. You have the methodology. You have the BA standards. Then some of the techniques. You have the SWOT, your estimation process, modeling, your workshops. Then moving on to the next task, that is plan stakeholder engagement approach. How do you want to approach your stakeholders? How do you want to engage them? So the elements here would be your stakeholder list, who are your stakeholders, their rules, the attitudes, influence, collaboration approach. Then the input you are going to bring in here would be the needs, the BA approach. Then what you're expecting at the end of the day will be your BA stakeholder engagement approach. And all stakeholders will be involved. Your guidelines and tools, you have your stakeholder analysis, your organization's culture. Then for technique, you have interviews, surveys, how you want to engage with your stakeholders. Then plan BA governance. Remember, I said that everything that has to do with governance is approval, control, and all whatnot. So that is why under the element you can see control there, change control, you can see prioritization, you can see approvals. Then for input, you have the BA approach and also your stakeholder engagement. Okay, that is the output from the two other ones. Now, the output here would be governance approach. At the end of the day, that is what you're getting. Then for your stakeholders, you have your regulator, your PM, and all whatnot. But to guide you, and as for tools, you have your business policies. Yeah, there may be policies existing in the company, your org governance standards. Then for techniques, you have decision analysis, reviews, and all whatnot. Then moving on to the next task, and that is the BA plan, BA information management. How do you want to, manage the information you give out? So under elements, that is why you have the storage, access, the detail levels, traceability, reuse. Then input would be the BA approach, the governance approach. Your output would be information management approach. And for stakeholders there, you can see your domain SME, you can see your tester also, you can see other stakeholders, okay? Then for guidelines and tools, you see your legal or regulatory requirements, your information management. And for techniques, you can use your brainstorming or workshops. Then the last task under BAPM is identify business analysis performance improvement. So if you want to improve, how do you want to do that? So here at this stage, you plan those. Okay. For elements, you have performance metrics. For input, you have BA approach, your performance assessment. Then for output, BA performance assessment. Then for stakeholders, you have your PM, your regulator. Guidelines and tools, you have your performance metrics, and also for techniques, you are seeing benchmarking, brainstorming, document analysis. So, like for all these things we've mentioned, we've gone through them. So you can as well check our video, our former uploads, okay, to have a detailed like explanation, real life, scenario and all whatnot. So this we are just going through all these things. Now, for elicitation and collaboration, that is the second knowledge area. What is the purpose? The purpose here is to gather, confirm, and share requirements effectively. So at this point, you are just gathering your requirements, you are sharing it, and so all whatnot. So the first thing you have to do here is to prepare for your elicitation. And to prepare for elicitation, you will need to have your goals, your techniques, your participants, your logistics, where are we going to stay, and all whatnot. The input would be the needs, the stakeholder engagement approach. Then at the end of the day, you are getting the elicitation activity plan. Then for stakeholders, you have your domains, me, your customer, regulator, and all whatnot. Guidelines and tools, you see that you have your business objectives, documentation. Then for techniques, you see observation. You can decide to, go in and observe, brainstorming. Okay. Now, the second is conduct elicitation. So you're now going to gather the requirements from your stakeholders, and you need guide sections, capture info, confirm results. Then for the input, you have elicitation activity plan. Then for output, you have elicitation result unconfirmed. Okay, so it's like in the rough stage. So for stakeholders, you have everyone involved, guidelines and tools. You have your BA approach, and you have your collaboration tools. Then for techniques, you see interviews, workshops, observation, prototyping, and all whatnot. Then you're now going ahead to confirm elicitation results. Okay, so to confirm elicitation results, you will need to compare with source. You will need also to validate completeness, accuracy. Then for input, you will also need the elicitation result, the one you got that was unconfirmed here. And also as a form of output, you would have elicitation results confirmed. Okay, and your stakeholders would be all. Then for guidelines and tools, you have elicitations output. Then um, for techniques, here you have reviews, walkthroughs, observation, document analysis. Then for communicate BA information, that is the task. You have elements as audience, packaging, delivery, level of detail. Then for input, you have information management approach, BA info. Then for output, you have BA information as communicated. Then for your stakeholders, you have all stakeholders. Then guidelines and tools, you have your elicitation methods, information management systems. Then for techniques, you have your workshops, you have your presentations, you have your reports, prototyping, visual models. Then the next task will be manage stakeholder collaboration. So for elements, you need your communication needs, availability, trust building. Then the input here will be stakeholder engagement approach. The output will be collaboration manage, and also with stakeholders, everyone involved. Then guidelines and tools will be organizational culture, governance approach. Then as you can see, some of the techniques here, you have brainstorming, workshops. Then for your going on to the next knowledge area, that is requirement life cycle management. So the requirements you collected, you need to manage the life cycle. Okay, so the purpose here is to ensure requirements are aligned, maintained, and approved. So the first task here is trace requirements. So you want to trace your requirement, and the elements here will have level of formality, your relationship, that is derive, satisfy, validate, allocate. Please read that up, it's very important for your exam. Then the input would be requirements and designs. Then output will be requirements or designs traced. Okay, stakeholders will be your domains, me, your tester, your developer. Guidelines and tools here will be traceability standards, governance approach, techniques. You're looking at traceability metrics and all whatnot. Moving on to the next task, that is the maintain requirement. So you want to maintain requirement that you've traced. That is, you need to look at reuse, accuracy, the consistency, obsolescence. Then the input here will be requirement designs. The output will still be requirement designs maintained. Then stakeholders all. Then guidelines and tools here will be your business objective, legal, regulatory. Then techniques, you are looking at reviews, document analysis, item tracking. Moving on to the next task, that is, you now want to prioritize your requirements. You are looking at the elements, looking at the value, the risk, the urgency, effort, stability. You want to look at what you use to prioritize a requirement. So, and for inputs, you have requirement designs. For outputs, you have requirement designs prioritized. Then for stakeholders, you're looking at your sponsor, your customer, domains, me, and all whatnot. Then guidelines and tools, you have your governance approach, your prioritization techniques. Then for techniques, you can use the must-call, that is must have, should have, would have. You have also your weighted scoring, workshops. Then the next task will be assess requirement changes, looking at the changes that have gone through, like the requirement has gone through. And the elements here will be change drivers, value, impact, feasibility. Then the input will be proposed change, requirements, designs. Then the output will be requirement design change assessment. Then for stakeholders, you have your sponsor, you have your regulator, you have your PM. Then guidelines and tools, you have your governance approach, risk analysis. Then the techniques here, you see your impact analysis, decision analysis, risk analysis. Then the next task is approve requirements, and under that you're looking at as element decision making, conflict resolution, approvals. And for input you have verified or validated requirements. For output you are having requirements or designs approved. Then for stakeholders, you have sponsor, you have regulator, you have customer. Then moving on to guidelines and tools, you have governance approach, your organizational policies. Then for reviews, for techniques, you have reviews, walkthroughs. Then moving on to the next knowledge area, that is strategy analysis. It is for you at this point to understand current state, define future state, assess risk, and develop a change strategy. So you are looking at what is obtainable now, what will you want to gain at the end of the day, and also are there risks involved. Then you are looking at the first task. The first task is your analyze current state, and to do that, your elements would be business needs, capabilities of structure, culture, infrastructure, assumption, constraints. The input here would be business needs, external influences. Then output will be current state description, because this is what you actually want to come up with. Then the stakeholders will be your sponsor, domain SME, and all whatnot. The guidelines and tools, you have your enterprise architecture, industry benchmarks. Then the techniques, you have the SWOT, you have the brainstorming and all whatnot. Then moving on to the next task is define the future state. You're looking at the goals, the objectives, the scope, capabilities, policies, culture. Then for input, you're looking at current state description. Then you now move on to the output. That is what you're getting at the end of the day. That is the future state description. Now, your stakeholder will be your sponsor. Stakeholders, you are having your sponsor, your customer, regulator, and all whatnot. Then guidelines and tools, looking at the strategic plans, business objectives. Then the techniques here, you can look at model, business model canvas, financial analysis, scorecard. Then going on to the next task, that is assess risk. And the elements you are looking at risk conditions, likelihood, impact, tolerance, dependencies. Then for input, you have current or future state. Then for output, you have risk and assessment. Then for stakeholders, you have your sponsor, your regulator, and all whatnot, guidelines and tools. You have your risk management policies. Now, the techniques, you are looking at the risk analysis, decision analysis, and SWOT. Then moving on to the last task here, it is you are now trying to define change strategy. So for elements, you have the approach, the scope, the transitions, trade-offs, alignment. Then the input, you have the future state, the risk assessment. The output, you have the change strategy. Then the stakeholders, you have your sponsor, your domain SME. Then for your guidelines and tools, you have business policies. Then on the techniques, you have decision analysis, financial analysis. Then for RA, that is requirement analysis and design definition. So at this stage, you are now looking at analyzing your requirements, and also you are defining your design. Okay, so the purpose here is to organize requirements, define the designs, and recommend solutions. Okay, this at this point you start thinking about solutions. Okay, solutioning. So the first task here is for you to specify and model requirements. So the elements will be level of abstraction, notation, model types. Then the input will be elicitation results. The output will be requirements specified or modeled. And for this, you need all your stakeholders. Some of the guidelines and tools you have here is modeling standards. Okay. Then for techniques, you can have your modeling, process modeling, prototyping, even your use case. Then for verify requirements, the elements will be the quality, you have the atomic, complete, consistent, feasible, testable. So I also suggest you read this up very well. And for input, you have requirement. For output, you have verified requirement. Then for stakeholders, you have your tester, you have your regulator, you have your domain SME. Then for guidelines and tools, you see your requirement quality standards. Then techniques, you are looking at your review, your walkthroughs, checklists. Then the next task here is validate requirements. So in validating requirements, you're looking at alignment with needs, value, delivery. Then for input, you have requirements, elicitation results. Then for output, you have validated requirements. Then for your stakeholders, you have your sponsor, your customer, your regulator. Then your guidelines and tools here, you have your business objectives. Then the techniques here, you are looking at the reviews, walkthroughs. Then the next task is define requirement architecture. So for elements, you're looking at viewpoints, frameworks, templates, relationships. Then for input, you're looking at verified and validated requirements. Then for output, you're having requirement architecture. Then for your stakeholders, you have your tester, your implementation SME. Then for guidelines and tools, you have your architectural frameworks, your traceability standards. Then for techniques, you have your modeling documents. Modeling, you have your document analysis. Then for the next task is define design options. So you're now trying to look at the design options you have. Okay. So the elements here would be, are you going to build or buy or reuse? Or so you also have solution scope or value. Also recommend you read those up. Then for input, you have requirement architecture, stakeholder needs. Okay. Then for output, you have design options. Now, for stakeholders, you have your sponsor, your developer, implementation SME. Then, for your guidelines and tools, you have your solution scope, you have your financial analysis. For techniques, you have your workshops, cost benefit analysis. Then, the last task here on the rad is analyze potential value and recommend solution. Okay, so for elements, you're looking at benefit. How would this benefit us? The cost analysis, maybe the risk, the limitation. Then input, you have design options, business objectives. Then the output, you have solution recommendation. Then for stakeholder, you have your sponsor. Then for guidelines and tools, you have your business case. Then for techniques, you have the design analysis, design decision analysis, then financial analysis as well, and others. Then moving on to the last task, knowledge area, that is solution evaluation. So at this point, you have gone live. Okay, so you are looking at measuring, the quality, the value you are getting from your live product. Okay, looking at it from the products, from the company, and all around. Now, here you're trying to measure performance and recommend actions for improvement. Okay, the first task here is to measure solution performance. And for elements, you have define measures, collect quantitative or qualitative data. So for input, you have the implemented solution, right? Then for also you have business objectives. For output, you have solution performance measures. Okay. Then for stakeholders, you have your end users, customer, and all whatnot. So for to guide you, or for as tools, you have your KPIs, your metrics. Okay. And techniques, you also have your metrics analysis, data analysis. Then for the next task, that is analyze performance measures. The element here would be compare versus expected trends or variances. Input, also you have your solution performance measures. Your output, you have your performance analysis result. Then for stakeholders, you have your sponsor, your regulator, guidelines and tools, you have business objectives. For techniques, you have trend analysis. So the next task is assess solution limitations. Okay. And the elements here is root cause analysis. Your input would be performance analysis results. Looking at also your output and solutions limitations. Then for stakeholders, you have your end user, sponsor, the guidelines and tools. You have your solution scope and the techniques. You have root cause analysis. Moving on to the next task, that is assess enterprise limitation. Now, for the elements, also you are looking at the culture in the organization, the infrastructure, the governance, the input. You have solution limitations, business objectives. Then for output, you have your enterprise limitations. The stakeholders, you have your sponsor, your regulator, your operations. For guidelines and tools, you're looking at the architectural frameworks, and for techniques, you are looking at the SWOT. Then the last task here is recommend actions or improvement. Okay, so for elements, you're looking at corrective actions, alternative solutions, trade-offs. For input, you're looking at solution and enterprise limitations. Output, you're looking at recommended actions. Then for stakeholders, you have your customer, you have your sponsor, and for guidelines and tools, you have risk analysis, then decision analysis, and risk and all whatnot would make up the techniques. So this is the end of our summary of running through this, but know that we'll keep on reading through the BABOK, explaining stuff. So you can as well check out our videos, leave us a comment, like and share. Thank you.